Welcome. Join us as we improve your English through the power of storytelling. Each story is carefully crafted to help you learn new words and enjoy the journey of language learning. Today's story is called The Interview That Changed Everything. First, enjoy the complete story without interruption. Then, stay until the end, where we will review important vocabulary words from the story together. You will learn the pronunciation, meaning, and how to use each word in sentences. Now sit back, relax, and let's begin the story. The Interview That Changed Everything. Sarah sat in the waiting room of one of the most prestigious technology companies in the world, her hands shaking slightly as she clutched her portfolio. She was 28 years old and had been rejected from 43 job interviews in the past 6 months. This was interview number 44. She had graduated from a decent university 7 years ago, but not a top one. She had work experience, but not from famous companies. Her resume was solid, but not spectacular. In a job market where hundreds of qualified candidates competed for every position, Sarah was painfully average on paper. But she had prepared for this interview like never before. She had studied the company for weeks. She had practiced her answers to common questions. She had researched every person she might meet. She was ready. Or so she thought. When Sarah entered the interview room, she found 3 people waiting for her: the hiring manager, a senior engineer, and someone she had not expected to see, the company's CEO, a woman named Jennifer Park, who had built the company from nothing into a billion-dollar enterprise. Sarah's heart sank. Having the CEO in an interview was unusual and intimidating. She suddenly felt very small. "Please, sit down," Jennifer said with a warm smile. "I like to sit in on some of our interviews. I hope you don't mind." Sarah sat down, trying to control her breathing. The interview began with standard questions about her background and experience. She answered adequately, but could feel herself being too careful, too rehearsed. She was not standing out. She was just another nervous candidate giving acceptable answers. Then Jennifer asked a question that was not on any list Sarah had prepared for. "Sarah, I've looked at your resume. I've seen your work samples. They're good, but honestly, we have 50 other candidates with similar qualifications. Some have degrees from better schools. Some have worked at more impressive companies. On paper, you're not our top choice. So tell me, why should we hire you instead of someone with better credentials?" The room went silent. The other interviewers looked uncomfortable. This was not a trick question designed to test Sarah's response to pressure. This was simply the truth, stated plainly, and it demanded an honest answer. Sarah felt a wave of emotions. She could give the safe answer, talk about her passion and work ethic, say all the things candidates are supposed to say, but something about Jennifer's directness made her want to be equally direct. "You're right," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "On paper, I'm probably not your best candidate, but I think there's something your other candidates might not understand that I do." "What's that?" Jennifer asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. "I know what it's like to fail," Sarah said. "I've been rejected 43 times in the past 6 months. Each rejection hurt. Each one made me question myself. But each one also taught me something. I learned to handle disappointment and keep going. I learned to analyze what went wrong and improve. I learned that my worth isn't determined by other people's decisions about me. She paused, then continued. Your top candidates with impressive resumes, they're talented, I'm sure. But many of them have probably never really failed at anything significant. They don't know how to pick themselves up when things don't go according to plan. They don't know how to persist when the easy path disappears. Sarah looked directly at Jennifer. I saw that you started this company after being fired from your previous job. I read that you were rejected by 37 investors before someone finally believed in your idea. You understand what I'm talking about. Success isn't about never failing. It's about what you do after you fail. The room was completely quiet. Sarah worried she had gone too far, been too bold. But Jennifer was nodding slowly. Tell me about one of those 43 rejections, Jennifer said. Tell me about one that really hurt and what you learned from it. Sarah thought for a moment. Interview number 17, she said. It was for a company I really wanted to work for. I made it to the final round. There were only 2 candidates left, me and one other person. I thought I had done well. I felt good about my chances. They chose the other person. But what hurt wasn't just the rejection. The hiring manager called me personally to explain why. He said I was technically competent, but that I seemed to lack confidence in presenting my ideas. He said I apologized too much, qualified my statements too much, made myself smaller in the room. That feedback destroyed me for about a week. But then I realized he was right. I had been taught to be humble, to not seem arrogant, to make space for others. But somewhere along the way, I had confused humility with making myself invisible. I had been diminishing my own value. Sarah smiled slightly. So I started working on that. I joined a public speaking group. I practiced stating my opinions without immediately undermining them. I learned the difference between being confident and being arrogant. And honestly, the fact that I'm sitting here telling the CEO of a major company that I'm not your best candidate on paper, but you should hire me anyway, that shows how much I've changed since interview 17. Jennifer smiled broadly. That's exactly the kind of self-awareness and growth mindset we need here. But I have another question. You've been rejected 43 times. How do you maintain motivation? How do you keep getting up for interview 44 when 43 people have said no? Sarah leaned back in her chair, considering the question carefully. I changed how I measure success, she said. At first, after each rejection, I felt like a failure. But then I realized I was measuring the wrong thing. I was measuring outcomes I couldn't control. Whether someone hires me or not depends on many factors beyond my performance. Other candidates, budget, timing, company politics, things I'll never even know about. So I started measuring what I could control. Did I prepare thoroughly? Did I show up on time? Did I communicate my value clearly? Did I learn something from the experience? If I could answer yes to those questions, then the interview was a success, regardless of whether I got the job. She continued, Every rejection is just data. Interview 10 taught me I need to research companies better. Interview 23 taught me I talk too fast when I'm nervous. Interview 31 taught me to ask better questions about company culture. I keep a spreadsheet. After every interview, I write down what went well and what I can improve. I'm not the same candidate I was 43 interviews ago. I'm significantly better. Jennifer exchanged glances with the other interviewers. Sarah, let me ask you something else. If we don't hire you, if this becomes rejection number 44, what will you do? I'll be disappointed, Sarah answered honestly. I'll probably feel discouraged for a day or two, but then I'll review this interview in my spreadsheet. I'll identify what I could have done better, and I'll apply what I learned to interview 45. Because the only way this process truly defeats me is if I stop trying. As long as I keep improving and keep showing up, I haven't failed. I'm just not done yet. The senior engineer, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. That's a healthy attitude, but doesn't it get exhausting? How long can you sustain that level of resilience? Sarah thought about this. You're right that it's exhausting. But I've learned something important. Resilience isn't something you either have or don't have. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. My first rejection devastated me for weeks. Rejection 43 bothered me for maybe half a day. Not because I care less, but because I've built up my resilience muscle. And here's what I've realized, Sarah continued, her voice growing more passionate. Every successful person I've ever read about, including you, Miss Park, they all have stories of rejection and failure. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't isn't that successful people don't fail. It's that they've learned to treat failure as information rather than as identity. They've learned to separate "I failed at this task" from "I am a failure." That's a skill, and it can be learned. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. Sarah, I'm curious. You mentioned you've been rejected 43 times in 6 months. That's a lot of interviews. How have you been supporting yourself financially during this time? I've been doing freelance work, Sarah said. It doesn't pay as well as a full-time job, but it keeps me afloat. More importantly, it's taught me to be resourceful. I can't just wait for the perfect opportunity. I have to create opportunities for myself. I've actually learned new skills through freelancing that I wouldn't have learned in a traditional job. Like what? The hiring manager asked. Like how to market myself, how to negotiate rates, how to manage client relationships, how to deliver quality work under pressure without a boss supervising me. These are skills that will make me a better employee, whether here or somewhere else. So even though this period of unemployment has been challenging, it hasn't been wasted time. Jennifer leaned forward. Sarah, I have one more question, and I want you to be completely honest. If you got this job, what would you do if you failed at something in your first few months here? Because you will fail at something. Everyone does when they start a new job. Sarah didn't hesitate. I'd do exactly what I'd been doing for the past 6 months. I'd acknowledge the failure honestly. I'd analyze what went wrong without making excuses. I'd ask for help and feedback. I'd develop a plan to improve. and I'd apply what I learned to do better next time. The only difference is, instead of being accountable to myself in my spreadsheet, I'd be accountable to my team and my manager." She paused, then added, "Actually, that's not quite true. There is one other difference. If I fail at something here, I won't see it as a rejection of my worth as a person. I'll see it as part of the learning process." That's the real lesson from 43 rejections. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the path to success. The interview continued for another 30 minutes, but the tone had completely changed. They talked about specific projects, technical challenges, team dynamics. Sarah felt herself relaxing, speaking more naturally, even laughing at one point. She was no longer the nervous candidate trying to say all the right things. She was just herself, talking honestly about her experiences and what she had learned. When the interview ended, Sarah shook hands with everyone and walked out of the building. She felt good about how it had gone, but she had learned not to get her hopes up too much. She would know in a week or two, they had said. Sarah went home, opened her spreadsheet, and wrote her notes about interview 44. What went well? She had been authentic. She had connected her failures to valuable lessons. She had demonstrated self-awareness. What could improve? She could have prepared better technical examples for some questions. 3 days later, Sarah received an email from Jennifer Park personally. She opened it with her heart racing, prepared for rejection 44. The email began, "Sarah, thank you for one of the most memorable interviews I've had in years." Sarah's hands started shaking. This was good news, or very elaborately worded bad news. The email continued, "We'd like to offer you the position. Your technical skills are solid, but what impressed me most was something we can't teach: the ability to fail, learn, and keep going. That quality is worth more than any prestigious degree or impressive resume line. Welcome to the team." Sarah read the email 3 times to make sure she wasn't misunderstanding. Then she sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. Interview 44 was the one. After 6 months, 43 rejections, countless hours of preparation, and more self-doubt than she cared to remember, she had done it. But more than getting the job, Sarah had gained something more valuable. She had proven to herself that she could face repeated failure and not break. She had learned that rejection doesn't define her. She had developed resilience, self-awareness, and the ability to turn every setback into a lesson. Years later, when Sarah had become a senior leader at that same company, she always made time to sit in on job interviews. And when she met candidates with perfect resumes who had never really failed at anything, she would sometimes ask them, "Tell me about a time when you really failed, when something didn't go according to plan. What did you learn?" Because she knew from experience that the ability to handle failure with grace, to learn from rejection, and to keep going when things get hard, those are the qualities that truly predict success. And those qualities can only be developed through struggle. Sarah kept her spreadsheet of interviews. Sometimes, when she faced a difficult challenge at work, she would open it and read through her notes from those 44 interviews. It reminded her of how far she had come, how much she had learned, and how every rejection had been preparing her for the success she eventually achieved. The spreadsheet taught her the most important lesson of all. You're never really failing as long as you're learning. Every no is just bringing you closer to yes. And sometimes, the rejections are the best thing that could have happened because they make you strong enough to handle the success when it finally comes. This is the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it and understood the powerful message about resilience, treating failure as information, and the importance of measuring what you can control rather than outcomes you cannot. Now, let's review 6 important vocabulary words we heard in this story. Listen carefully to the spelling, meaning, and examples. Vocabulary review. Number 1. Prestigious. Let me spell it. Prestigious. Prestigious. Prestigious means having a high status and respect, well known for excellence and quality. When something is prestigious, it is admired and considered very important. In the story, Sarah sat in the waiting room of one of the most prestigious technology companies in the world. The company was highly respected and well known for its excellence. Here's another example. She received her degree from a prestigious university that was known worldwide for academic excellence. One more example. Winning the prestigious award was the highlight of his career. Number 2. Credentials. Let me spell it. Credentials. Credentials. Credentials means qualifications, achievements, or aspects of a person's background that make them suitable for something. Your credentials include your education, experience, and skills. In the story, Jennifer asked Sarah why they should hire her instead of someone with better credentials. She was asking why Sarah was a better choice than candidates with more impressive qualifications. Here is another example. His credentials include a master's degree and 10 years of experience in the field. One more example. The company carefully checked the credentials of every candidate before making a hiring decision. Number 3. Competent. Let me spell it. Competent. Competent. Competent means having the necessary ability, knowledge, or skill to do something successfully. When you are competent, you can do your job well and meet the required standards. In the story, the hiring manager told Sarah she was technically competent but lacked confidence in presenting her ideas. He said she had the skills to do the work but needed to improve how she communicated. Here's another example. She was a competent teacher who understood her subject well and explained concepts clearly. One more example. Any competent mechanic should be able to fix that problem with your car. Number 4. Resilience. Let me spell it. Resilience. Resilience. Resilience means the ability to recover quickly from difficulties, to bounce back from challenges, and keep going. When you have resilience, you can face problems and setbacks without giving up. In the story, the engineer asks Sarah how long she could sustain that level of resilience. He wanted to know how she could keep bouncing back from rejection after rejection. Here is another example. Building resilience helps you handle stress and overcome obstacles in your personal and professional life. One more example. Her resilience was remarkable as she recovered from the setback and became even stronger than before. Number 5. Resourceful. Let me spell it. R-E-S-O-U-R-C-E-F-U-L. Resourceful. Resourceful means able to find quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties. When you are resourceful, you can solve problems creatively using whatever tools or options are available to you. In the story, Sarah said that freelancing taught her to be resourceful. She learned to create opportunities for herself instead of just waiting for them to appear. Here is another example. The resourceful student found a creative solution to pay for college by starting a small online business. One more example. You need to be resourceful when traveling on a tight budget and finding affordable ways to see new places. Number 6. Accountable. Let me spell it. A-C-C-O-U-N-T-A-B-L-E. Accountable. Accountable means responsible for your actions and willing to explain or justify them. When you are accountable, you take ownership of what you do and accept the consequences. In the story, Sarah said if she failed at something in her new job, she would be accountable to her team and manager. She would take responsibility and work to improve rather than making excuses. Here is another example. Good leaders hold themselves accountable for the results of their decisions, both good and bad. One more example. In this company, everyone is accountable for meeting their commitments and delivering quality work. Excellent work! You have learned 6 powerful vocabulary words today. These words are prestigious, credentials, competent, resilience, resourceful, and accountable. Practice using these words in your daily conversations and writing. Remember Sarah's most important lesson. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the path to success. Every rejection teaches you something if you are willing to learn. Keep measuring what you can control, keep improving, and keep showing up. Thank you for learning with us today. See you in the next story.